This is lesson 2 of Killer Queen by Queen, taken from the Vocal Music Set Works from GCSE Edexcel specification. So in this lesson, we're going to put together some of the things you did in lesson 1 regarding the background information and put it together with sort of the taking it apart area of this set work. So like I said, we're going to learn a bit about Queen and the background to Killer Queen. We're not going to listen to the song. You hopefully done that in lesson and followed the lyrics. You can also go and do that in your own time as well. Understand what is meant by harmonic sequence and harmonic rhythm. Understand what a dominant 7 is. How inversions can be used to create a bass line. Understand what a circle of fifths is and how to construct it. And look at extended chords, including an added 11th. So let's just take a bit of a background information, okay? So Queen, formed by guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor in 1970. And in 1971, they were joined by the singer Freddie Mercury and bassist John Deacon. Their first album, Queen, was released in 1973. And they were kind of one of the first bands to really experiment with different types of recording techniques and new recording techniques, some of which we'll pick up on in this set work. They were the songwriters of a ridiculous amount of hit songs, including Bohemian Rhapsody, We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions, and many others. Freddie Mercury had one of the best voices of all time. I know it's biased, but it really did. It was 5 octaves. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 octaves. Really massive range. Which most people can't really recreate now. And Brian May is a virtuosic, I'm going to stick with that, guitarist with a great technique, famous for his solos. So why was the song and the band so great? So it had quite adventurous structures. It wasn't your usual introduction or a normal instrumental or middle 8, and it became more adventurous in such songs like Bohemian Rhapsody. If you've heard that, that is just really out there, very different, very adventurous. They used a lot of unusual keys, unusual harmonies, stuff that wasn't really heard in rock music before this. Quick modulations, extended chords, which we'll look at in this lesson. Very beautiful, irregular melodies made up of 4-bar, 5-bar, 3-bar phrases, not like your standard 4 bars, 4 bars, 4 bars. And then instrumental virtuosity, I got it right this time. So incredible vocal range, virtuosic guitar solos, melodic bass lines, jazz-inspired drum fills, a lot to it. Extremely talented musicians. And they coupled all this together with the music technology side, which is kind of the first real band that started to experiment with this. So studio sound experimented with latest technology at the time. As for the song, it's released in 1974, Killer Queen, from the album Sheer Heart Attack. It was the first of Queen's songs to become popular, reaching number 2 in the UK charts. Actually, they didn't get a number 1 hit song until years later. I think it was with Crazy Little Thing Called Love, with their first number 1. And it's only since Freddie Mercury died that we've started getting Queen higher and higher up the charts. It has a lighter sound than their previous songs, which has something to do with the fact that May was in hospital when Mercury was recording it, so we had to write it without his guitarist there. At first, it's noted that Brian May was not keen on the Killer Queen song, but the rest of the band had left space for his guitar solo, which ended up being one of his favourites. Now, you can go and have a listen to it in your own time, but I think we need to crack on. And those are the lyrics. So let's start by taking it apart. And we're going to look firstly at the harmony and tonality. So Killer Queen is in E flat major, which is quite an unusual pop song, key for a pop song. You tend to hear songs in F, G major, A minor. You don't really use the sort of flattened majors or flattened minor key signatures. So the weird thing, firstly, about this song is that it's in E flat major, but if I play the first chord to you, it's actually the relative minor chord. Now, it was a really, really clever, I'm not sure what that face is, I'm not making that face. I'm not sure, very, very strange to have it in E flat major, but starting with a C minor chord. Now, if we actually listen to the piece, I'm just going to play it. We don't hear the E flat major until part of the way through the first verse. So at the beginning, you've got. It's not until there that we actually hit the E flat, and now we're in the E flat key. So it's quite a while in. You're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So kind of halfway through the 8th bar of the music, which is very strange technique. Again, something that Queen were more than happy to do. Just a quick one. So if we're in E flat major, we have 3 flats. So I'm just going to draw this out really roughly. So you've got B flat, E flat, and A flat. Let's put a treble clef there. So there's your E flat major key signature: B flat, E flat, and A flat. Obviously, relative minor, C minor. The chords in the verse. So we kind of get this alternating pattern between the relative minor, which is C minor, and the dominant 7th chord, so B flat 7. And it changes every bar, like I've just played to you. 1, 2, 3. So you get that for quite a few bars. So we get it up to there. So an interesting change, again, very unusual harmonies. You wouldn't really hear those in many different pop songs. As for in the verse, where we get up to the lines of built-in remedy, the chords change for the second phrase. So finally, we hear the tonic E major, E flat major. Okay, and just a note. So I'm going to play that again. So the verse. And now we're in our E flat major. And notice as well, when I play it, we've actually gone from changing chord every bar, so every 4 beats. We now change every 2 beats. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, very clever technique used there. And then we get this phrase on the words caviar and cigarettes. It's a 3-bar harmonic sequence which moves up a third each time. So it moves from chord 5 to chord 1. So you get this. So very, very interesting sequence happening there. I'm going to play it once more. So that's the 1. Wow, let's do that again. Let's do it right. So very, very interesting techniques used already. And then we hear some dominant 7ths. So many of the chords in Killer Queen have an added 7th. You've got B flat 7, G7, D7, E flat 7. So these are known as dominant 7ths. It's a triad with an added flattened 7th note. So let's say you take your C major scale. So let's just do it in C for the ease of it. You've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Right, and let's say we're going to play a C chord. So we know that we use C, we use E, and G. Now to make this a dominant 7th, we take the 7th note here, which is B, and we flatten it. And we end up with this sound. So a dominant 7th. Lots of them are used throughout. B flat 7 is the triad in this one, and you add the seventh note, which just happens to be that above, which is A, which is flattened by a semitone, so A flat, very similar to the example given in C major here. I'll give you a couple of seconds if you want to try and work out that one. Can you work out the notes of a G7 chord? G major as an F sharp in it is your hint. So maybe have a try working that out. Give you a clue, it's going to be one of your questions in the Prepare for Learning task. So if you are looking at the chord symbols in Killer Queen, we're looking at inversions, you'll often see things like this: E flat / G. Well, I'm not going to say, do you know what this means? Because I'm telling you what it means. Basically, it means that it's telling the guitar or piano that in their right hand, they're playing an E flat chord. Now, this normally you would then assume that in your left hand, you're playing the E flat bass. Like that. But actually, we're switching the notes around now, and it wants you to play the G in the bass. So it just gives it another layer to the harmony. And what that's called is an inversion. You take the notes. So again, let's take our C chord. So you've got C, E, and G in a C chord. If we were to play it in root position, means that we start with the C at the bottom. If we to play it in first inversion, it means that that C moves and it comes at the end like that. So we have E, G, and C. It's the same chord, but notes are in a different order. And then second inversion, try and do this. We take E, and we move it to the end there. We end up with G, C, E. Again, same notes, same chord, just the notes are in a different order. So if you have a root position, first inversion, and second inversion. And that happens quite a lot throughout Killer Queen. Now, if the root, as I said, if the root of the chord is not in the bass, the chord is an inversion. So in this case, a first inversion. Most of the chords in Killer Queen are in root position. So if it's a G7, you have a G in the bass. When they're not, it's often so the bass can move by step. So it's not, the bass, say if you went from a C to an F chord, your bass note's got to jump from a C to an F. So to make that easier for the bass player, you go from E to F. So C. And again. Just adds another textured layer to it, and it makes it easier for the bass player. Used a lot in this song. So this is the most complicated part. And it's a very common chord progression called the circle of fifths. And it's where the root note of each chord is a fifth lower or a fourth higher than the one before it. So one of the most famous circle of fifths can be heard in I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. So if I just play that for you, I'll see if I've got the circle of fifths loaded up here. Right, so there is an example of the circle of fifths somewhere. Let's just accept that. I'm not having that one. There you go. There's an example of the circle of fifths. So if we take Gloria Gaynor, we start in D minor, and we go to G minor. So we start off with D minor, G minor, then we go to C, F. So if we just highlight that, I think I can do that. Can I do that? What does that do? Let's click that. Oh, I think I've broken it now. Right, okay. So let's say we start in our D minor chord here. We then go to G minor. We went from C to F. So moving to the chords next to it. And you get this kind of So we move around the circle of fifths, and Killer Queen is no different. We move quite a lot around the circle of fifths. So we go from an A chord to a D minor chord to a G7 to a C chord. Again, sounds very similar to I Will Survive. Play that again. So we move around like that. I'm just trying to see if I can get this working properly. Oh, there we go. That's what I wanted to do. I don't need it now. Okay. So we'll go over circle of fifths in your theory stuff anyway. If you need some more information, there's loads of information out there about circle of fifths. So extended chords. So you looked at the idea of adding notes to triads in Star Wars when we added the 6th and the 7th to triads. In Killer Queen, it's a little bit more challenging. So we have added 11ths. So there's actually an F11 chord at the end of the chorus, which creates a different and more complex harmonic sound. So we're going to work out these extended chords, which is quite tricky, but not if you know your odd numbers. You start with the note of the triad, 1, 3, 5, and then add the 7th, add the 9th, and finally add the 11th. So if you look at this, so this is an F11. F, A, C, E flat, G, B flat. Quite a difficult one. F, A, C, E flat, G, B flat. This is how it looks in Killer Queen. Notice that you don't actually play all of those notes. You're playing the root note, which is F, in the bass. Then you're playing the 9th note, which is G, the 11th note, which is B flat, and the 7th note, which is E flat. So F, G, B flat. So you've got that in there. Again, quite a strange harmonic chord to have in there. So in lessons, you'll have done the practical task. By all means, have a look through it. We'll have a look at the consolidating learning questions as well. They will be part of your battle work activity. Obviously, at this point, go through, make notes of anything that you need to make notes of. It's quite a lengthy lesson, this one. The taking it apart is always a lengthy lesson. If there isn't anything that you understood in that lesson, please make sure you talk to me or Mr. Jones and make sure that you get that help that you need. But thank you very much, and make notes, keep revising.